Hey guys, this is Kirop speaking, and in today's little dev update we have quite a few things to discuss. All the stuff, no, not all the stuff, but some of the stuff that is coming to Light Campaign v4.2, and not just the campaign. Today we are once again going to focus mostly on sandbox stuff, but there are a few campaign tidbits in there as well, or campaign affecting things, rather. So how about we just jump right in and start talking about the small things, and this video will also include some of the more heavyweight discussions of UI and where we want to lead players and how the gameplay itself is changing. So where do we want to start? Well, let's just say, let's get the one thing that is, well, both sandbox affecting and campaign affecting out of the way. It is quite interesting. We do have the new fuel UI implemented. This is still using the old data, but you remember that we changed this one to being able to select your fuel type yourself, and you see this little table on top, and that is the fuel availability in the different regions. And this is using the old data still, but what I do have for you today is not only showing you this little table, but rather also how we want to change the fuel availability over the course of the years in campaign, and well, sandbox is, as a derivative of that, just affected as well. So let me bring up this little chart here. So what you're seeing here is the fuel availability for the different checkpoints at the start of the decade, and for the years that are in between, what is happening is a linear interpolation. And well, I think this table speaks for itself, but let me point out a few things here that will change and affect gameplay. So first of all, Gasmir is pretty much your, let's say, standard, as in you have a very good availability of leaded fuel up to the 70s, and then that is waning off, while during the whole time you have a basic availability of 85 unleaded, and then 91 starts kicking in, and then you just up the ladder from 91 to 95 in roughly 1990, and then 98 becomes available in 2000, and then towards 2020 you also have 100 available at a decent amount of places. And that is how you're supposed to be reading this table. A 1 means 100% of the gas stations, almost, or basically 100%, have that fuel type available. If you are at like 0.8 or something, that means 80% have it available. And we are going to make it such that lower availabilities do come with a desirability penalty. But of course, you can put 95 in your tank when your car says it requires 91. Farenia is a little behind when it comes to the fuel quality. It is sporting the fantastic horse piss at the start of the campaign, with 100% availability of 85 and only 60% for 92 leaded. And that means that you will incur some penalties if you use 92 leaded, making you maybe choose to maybe have a version where that runs on 85, because you might also want to export to Arana. That has very poor fuel availability. They don't even really get 98 until 1980, until when they realized that, oh, that might not have been the best idea to go with this leaded stuff after all. And then slowly creep towards 91 and eventually 95. Dalua is very much the top of the line here when it comes to fuel availability. They are just fuel country number one. And you have, from the start, you have avgas available to you. 110. And that, as well as full availability of 98, if you want to export to Gasmir as well, and so on. Yeah, I think that should be playing quite interestingly, because the difference between 85 and 110 is quite substantial, I would say. I think this will add a bit of spice to that region specifically, especially considering that it's such a small market. But this can easily produce some record-breaking cars in the era. which also is a bit of an EP thing, of course, you might want to go for during campaign play, but also in Sandbox. So Avgas Leaded 110 is going to be available in campaign as well as, of course, in Sandbox. Helvetia, once again, a bit more in-between-ish, but they are the first country to really get rid of the leaded fuel. They are switching over quickly, and from 1980 onwards, you have 100% availability of 91. All right, I think that's already quite interesting. I think it will play well. It will confuse a few people, but that is why we have this new table here, which will basically do exactly what I've done here in spreadsheet, that it gives you the current availabilities, but then also there will be an indicator for the trend in these fields, if the trend is strongly positive or negative for the availability over the next 10 years, or the projection of the availabilities. There's one more thing that is very campaign affecting that I wanted to show you. It's already implemented, but not that visible, but let's see. So this car supposedly has an approximate cost of 32,000, and it is reasonably comfortable and somewhat prestigious. Usually what you would be seeing is that at this price point, the premium category would be quite happy about this, as well as the luxury and maybe some others here along the way. That is not the case anymore, because we have implemented the what plebs can buy this car too? No, then I don't want it modifier. Yes, that was all in air quotes. So that is now in, which means that there is a curve of penalty that applies when your car is more than 50%, or starts applying smoothly and then more rapidly, when your car is more than 50% affordable in a demographic, and the demographic has a high brand prestige weighting. So they very much look at what brand they're buying. They're very aware of that. They want to have a massive EPEAN. Carpeen, I guess. Then yes, they are going to reconsider purchasing that vehicle if it's too cheap, because plebs might be able to afford it too. Very much the case in the luxury and supercar segments, because who likes cheap cars anyway, right? That's terrible. This will further help splitting up the demographics in a reasonable way, and you need to consider how you price your different trims. So even Family Premium is looking at this, it's like, nah, maybe not. Maybe that's a little on the cheapish side, or sheepish side rather. So yes, that's that. Implemented, seems to be working. The curve might need some more tweaking, and the dependence on the brand strength. And brand strength, by the way, is a modifier that each demographic has, where the luxury premium has the strongest one, and they only want to buy some really prestigious stuff. Yes, hyper as well, of course, and super and so on. And the lowest is probably some of the utility vehicles. They really don't care. They just want something that holds together really well. Okay, let's move on. Oh yes, finally, just a quick note. The new body box system, a big change to gameplay, has been implemented. And now body boxes and weight as well as aerodynamics are all calculated dynamically without the input from the base parameters of the person who made the car body. So that will make all things in here a lot more consistent. The thumbnails haven't been updated just yet, so they will still show cabin volumes of 1,700 liters, where this car definitely has beyond 3,000. And that would be the case once his thumbnails are updated as well. They are already showing as much larger, like this one. Cabin volume 1,130 liters. No. That one is a lot larger, and here it's still bugged. It's showing 4,240 liters, but that has been already fixed in the current dev version, which I'm not playing at the moment. I'm playing a 3 days old version. This should be around 3,500 liters, which is kind of normal for that wheelbase and that size of car. Yes, so much more realistic numbers for cargo volume and passenger volume, and consistent values, which will make a massive difference to gameplay, especially considering that the AI doesn't have the ability to look at these numbers, but rather it just chooses a body type that should be working, and now they actually will be working. So there will be far less duds in the AI-created cars, which will mean that you have a more consistent difficulty in campaign and just a higher difficulty. Because currently, well, because of these issues with body boxes and many others as well, and body types, it just doesn't play well. Because the AI is not able to is not capable of handling wildly broken numbers, and that is the case in 4.1, and now in 4.2 that will be a lot better. What this also ties into is the detailed stats, as in the lift and downforce values, as well as weight, of course, for these bodies, and that has also already been implemented. And that brings us to something that is quite a small topic, but a nifty one: aerodynamics. We do have new undertrays, a whole new list. Let me bring up the table instead, because this is not that helpful. It doesn't give you a good overview, because missing strings and stuff. The values are all in already, though. So here you see the table of the new undertrays and the old undertrays. So we have added a few, and we've gotten rid of the downforce slider, as you see, because that one was just awkward and caused bugs, which we just barely noticed. And yeah, that one is removed, but you no longer need it, because now we have filled that area with some interesting options. So we have the none option, of course, which is just making your car much more draggy, well, we have a new baseline, and that is no longer none, but rather somewhere around semi-clad, yeah, around there, roughly. So none makes your car more draggy, and then we are going down the list, and it's making your car less draggy, but also then towards the end, sport and race, more draggy again, for the added benefit of having lots of downforce. So this seems to be working now. I think this was broken before, and yes, okay. So loads of lift is created by having no undertray there, because you just get such a large pressure differential between top and bottom of the car, and even the skid tray, it does help a bit. Are there values here corrected? Yeah, it looks like it. So no weight there. It's 40 kilos added there. 13 kilos added for the semi-clad. Yep, seems about right-ish. So some more tweaking needed, of course, but you see what is happening is that we are lowering. Oh, can you actually see that? The speed will increase, I guess. But what is going on in the table? You see it much better. You get a CD mod for your body, the chosen body. And the flow optimized one is actually subtracting 0.04 from your drag coefficient. But those are minor details, nothing to worry about. Basically, there is a new super flowy option that is very modern. It's like computer optimized, flow calculations done, and wind tunnel testing and everything. And then there's the naive version, which is the fully clad one, just like tape it shut and it will work. Then we go towards the sport, which adds quite a bit of downforce, and then the race version, which adds even more downforce, but also quite a bit more drag. So yeah, I think that will be playing a lot better than before. And of course, you still have the option to put on fixtures and so on. That nothing about that has changed. Oh, quick final note. As you can see, there is significant cost in engineering time connected to these more modern undertrays. There's a lot more engineering time in there. Just taping shut the bottom of the car is not that much of an engineering challenge as is to like fully flow optimize things. Okay, anyway, then let's move on to the next thing. Oh yes, okay, just a quick note. We have had a major overhaul of how quality and tech pool works, further differentiating them and making them a little bit more intuitive, especially when it comes to unlocking new components. It's mostly relevant to campaign play, but also, well, I guess in Sandbox a little bit, especially once you have tech pool in Sandbox, and yes, that is coming eventually. Not for 4.2, but I think for 5.0, which is coming after 4.2. The overall effect of the tweaking that I wanted to achieve here is to make playing with quality slider settings more viable. As in, normally I would just go through and leave quality at 0 because the difference even in 1 step up or 2 step ups were quite severe. But now this is going to tie much better into how much tech pool you have available, so that you really can have a decent compromise between engineering time and the quality of the parts, without like running into a wall of balance right away, where it's like, nah, either it's crazy levels of engineering time or not changing enough engineering time to make it worthwhile. And yes, this is going the wrong way at the moment. This is still bugged, but that's not how it's supposed to go. It's going the other direction. Yes. Anyway, the effect is supposed to be that you get on negative quality a much better bonus to your engineering time, as in less engineering time costs, and less engineering time, and thus also lower engineering costs. The safety and entertainment UI is now done. I think we touched on that before, so I'm just going to mention it really quick here. So this is now all working. It shows you the unlock date and shows you when the next section actually unlocks, and you can pick from earlier items as well. Overall, quite neat. I think this will be playing pretty well. But let's move on, because there's still much to talk about. How about we go to the wheel section? Because not only under trays have seen a bit of a revamp, but also the tire choices. And you can see the list is full. Yes, we have added a few, and that is the new additions. Let me bring up the table instead. Let me bring up the table. So here in this list you can see the stats of the tires the way they were before and the way they will be in Light Campaign v4.2. And what we have added is the all-terrain tire as well as a utility tire, and that has allowed us to shift the focus of some of the other tires a little bit, and I think this will play really well, because now you actually have to think what you want. Medium compound is the way to go if you want to make your car comfortable. It's just a standard. It's kind of the softest in terms of riding comfort. And from there we go down towards utility and the cheaper tires. Hard long life is the hard compound, and then we have the all-terrain tire, which is your kind of go to, yes, I do want to have a bit of off-road capability, but it doesn't have to be crazy, and I don't want to incur all the rolling resistance penalties and all that stuff. That is too much. Also, I don't want to pay the high price, and yeah, this is kind of a nice in-between. The difference between the hard and the chunky off-road before was just way too large. So, and that nicely fills the gap, as well as the utility tire, which is focused on just giving you a higher load capacity, while still being affordable, of course. Alright, what's next? Oh, yeah, okay, I should mention that rolling resistance calculations have been revamped completely. Previously, we just said, okay, this tire with these stats has rolling resistance blah. And that is not how rolling resistance works with cars. It is not a constant. It is dependent on speed. So what you're going to see is that depending on what tire type you have on there, like speed rating and stuff is important too, it will create various degrees of rolling resistance at different speeds. And rolling resistance can be something like 50% higher at a high speed compared to a low speed, where a high speed would be like 200 kilometers an hour. And tires that are made for higher speeds are more resistant to this increase in rolling resistance. So yeah, this will result in quite a bit more realistic top speed values as well. That was a big flaw in the calculations, in the physics calculations in automation before. So Yeah, I think this will play well without you actually noticing that anything has changed, but the results will just be more realistic. Okay, I have 2 more things for you. And one of them is campaign, and the other one is the biggest change of them all, and I want you to stay for that one. So let's just quickly take a look at the big change to the engineering page, and then we go into the most important discussion ever had in automation. No, maybe not quite, but it's up there. So engineering page. I don't have a campaign open here, so let's just look at it right now. So what you're looking at here is a UI mockup where ignore the body type desires little thing up there that's not supposed to be there. Also, this is just a mockup. This is not actually how it will look finalized, but it should give you a nice impression of where we're going with this. So, the engineering portion of the game was a little counterintuitive in its UI design. Read into that a little shit. But what basically was the case, I don't have my mouse pointer here, so bear with me. In the top right, you had this little table where it says Facelift Engineering Summary. Those were the values that were really important. Why they were hidden that, like, off to the side, somewhere to the top where you don't really look or interact with things, that is a good question. That was not great. So what we do want to do here is to give you instant feedback for how your slider settings are affecting the different attributes of your car and the engineering project as a whole. So you can see the sliders in this new table being horizontally aligned. So you have, not horizontally aligned, but horizontally stacked rather. And then you have the effects on the project as columns. And there are no values in there. You will see the red and the green bars extend or contract, depending on your slider settings though. And this would not be the look for 50-50-50-50-50 sliders, but rather a mix of them. So this is just what I use as the mockup. But anyway, so here you see, when you pull your tooling slider up and down, you will see in the row of the tooling that is listed as tooling with the text tooling, it will go up and down for those sliders, and you see how this slider affects all of these things. So if you are looking at your total and see that, oh man, engineering time is way too high, so let me try to pull down that tooling slider and see if that helps. And then you instantly get that feedback, how that changes the values and how it changes the modifier as a whole. Pretty close to where you're actually changing the thing, and you can do so for every slider in here, and it's all pretty close to where you're actually changing it, as well as just giving you a much better overview of what is actually going to happen with your settings, how these are affecting you. And there's nothing more needed on this page, because one big change that might not seem that big is that the engineering page has been moved before the factory page. So yes, you set up engineering first and then your factory. So we've switched the order there. Yes, so more about that in future little dev updates, I guess, when we are checking out how the campaign plays now. But yeah, that's a big change. But now let's go over to the biggest change. Again, just a mock-up, but as you can see here with the little car that I've built in the background, it is... Yes. Now let's fade it in again. You see that it actually fits right into the existing UI, which is very nice. So what do we see here? Holy shit, lots of things have changed, haven't they? We do want to get rid of the focus on competitiveness, because first of all, competitiveness is a lie. It doesn't give you an accurate representation of what cars actually sell, and it is misleading in a lot of ways. So we want to get away from using competitiveness. But that is not the only reason why we want to do it. The primary reason is because it plays like shit. You are trying to optimize, you're trying to wiggle all the sliders until you optimize that one singular magic value that is competitiveness. That is a slap in the face of a game that has so many beautifully designed dependencies. And of course they are beautiful because I designed them. Yes. No, but you get the point, right? So we have all these stats, and do they matter? No. Because the only thing you do is wiggle sliders until you have the highest possible score in the thing that you want. And that is competitiveness, because that's the only thing that was deciding if a car sells well or not. That is awful gameplay. So what we want to do here is to refocus player attention back to what actually matters, and that is the stats of the car, and thusly also focus your attention on how you actually change those stats of the car, which requires a lot more skill and thought than just checking out a value and trying different options until it fits. Alright, enter the new UI. So what do we have here? You see that the side stats panel has changed, and no, the old one isn't going away. What is going away are the boxes with the demographics, and they are completely replaced by this new list of demographics that you see there. But let's go through what we are looking at here. So on top you see the body type that you have chosen, and this is currently in the mode where a demographic is selected. You see here Family Premium is selected as the demographic. Alright, to Family Premium, the current choice of body type has a -5 penalty on desirability. Okay, very good to know. That was not shown outside of the tooltips before for the demographics. Very important choice. Now let's take a look at the stats below. You see drivability and all the usual ones, but then on the bottom there are a few missing, and the ordering is a little different and weird. That has a good reason. And the reason is that there are primary and secondary stats, and you see all the primary ones in the top 5, then the secondary ones going from 6th to 10th. And then at the bottom you have utility there, which is an added stat to the demographic. This doesn't make sense here for Family Premium, but Family Premium I don't think has any other stats added, so I just added it for mock-up reasons. The blue bars show you the percentage of score you're getting from the stat that is next to that. For instance, the drivability score there of 54.1 gives you blah percent of score of your score in the Family Premium. And the little white line is the balance of score that this demographic is seeking, while the little yellow indicator is where your competition is at, on average, the top 3. So, okay, what does this mean? If you have a longer bar, then more percentage of your score comes from that. But this is not going to be normalized, so you see if you're performing better overall in that segment, then your blue bar is longer. But what you need to consider is that if you, for instance, in this example, have a really long bar in sportiness, but the demographic actually doesn't seek much sportiness, then you probably have spent money in an unwise way. So, as you can see here, this is all coming back to focusing on the stats instead of competitiveness. Competitiveness, or the new metric, which is kind of desirability, is still part of it, but not at the forefront of it. This list that you see to the side, to the right-hand side of the demographics, is comprised of a color and an opacity value for the various demographics. When your normalized desirability hits 100%, so as compared to your competitors, you're scoring at least as well as your top 3 competitors, then that is green. That doesn't consider any kind of pricing yet. No price is being considered, just stats, because price at this point is a complete unknown. Previously, the game would just guess what the price would be, and that always was misleading. But that was a core component of the competitiveness value, which led to a lot of trouble. So that is gone. The opacity value of these list items, the demographic list items, is how well your scoring profile, like how your blue bars are aligned to the white bars. And they can go beyond, but like it's the balance. It's the balance overall of your car. How well your car is aligned to the desired scoring profile of that demographic. Okay, that means two things with these two stats. So how good your car is versus how well it fits the profile. You could, for instance, have a situation where you have a pretty low scoring car. Let's look here in the example. It's commuter premium. I've just put down there as an example. It's orange, which means the car's shit to those guys in the commuter premium category. But the scoring profile matches. So then you can wonder, okay, what did I do wrong? I designed a shit car for them, but maybe overall it's not too bad. Maybe I can fix it up. On the other hand, you see that sport is equally shit, but that is just because your stats are all out of whack for that demographic. So you probably have built a car that is just not meant to be suited to them. So this is just an example here, of course. And then don't forget that when you click on the demographic that is selected currently, it goes back to the normal stats mode that you know, where you see how stats change and so on, and you can compare stats to other cars and so on. So yes, one very important thing is that this list the new list has the capacity to show those hidden stats that were pretty much invisible before. If you click a demographic that is a little bit more specialized, like for instance muscle cars, what would pop up down there in the last four stats is capacity, as in engine capacity, and that would be scored, and you can see how you stack up in that scoring system. So overall, this is a much more dynamic and adaptable view of the stats and how your stats are feeding into desirability as well as the scoring profile, focusing on the stats instead of one magic value. And one important thing to note here is also that the color that you're seeing is capped at 100, which is green. And that means that you can have a car that is like 150% desirable, but it would still just be green. And the reason for that is that it doesn't really matter. It more depends on the price at that point. Like, if your car is the best in the market already, then it really doesn't matter too much how much more better it is. That is currently the example currently the case in 4.1, which you're playing. That it really matters, like, I want to go to 400 competitiveness. Not really. You want to sell the car at a reasonable price for that demographic while being 100% or a little bit more competitive in the sense of desirable. When you hover over one of those blue bars and the markers, you get the full breakdown of what your competitor's average value is for that stat and how you're scoring and what scoring percentage you get. So there's a lot more information in here if you need it, and easily accessible at that. Then there's one last little thing that I want to show you, and that is there's little bars onto the side of to the right hand side of the demographic listing, of the demographic list, and those are kind of warnings or notifications for that demographic. You know, when you are hovering over a demographic and it gives you like a body type penalty or low sportiness penalty or whatnot, and that's exactly it. So severe issues would be red, yellow issues would be just medium issues would be yellow, and minor issues would be blue, and if there are no issues, it's just gray. So at a glimpse, you see already like, there are a lot of problems here. You might not be able to count exactly like, there are 2 red bars, there's 1 yellow, and there are 2 blue, but you don't have to. It's like, does this car have a lot of issues and penalties or not? So I think that also gives you a good idea about if there is one major issue there, because there will be just 1 red bar. If the car is scoring poorly, but has the right scoring profile, then there might be a big penalty to it. You look there, oh yeah, there's a red bar and nothing else. So let me fix that problem so that I can sell this car much better than I would otherwise. So it gives you direct feedback as well. It's a little small at the moment, but I don't think it needs to be much larger than this. It's supposed to be a hint and not much more than that. Of course, you do get the detailed breakdown of those penalties when you hover over one of those demographics that has those bars as well. So yeah, I think that is all I wanted to talk about today. Lots of big changes in there, and I hope you enjoyed, and see you guys next time.